Hello and welcome back to the Northern Traditions Podcast, previously known as the Folk Podcast. This is episode 102, season 2, episode 2, whatever you want to call it. We're back and we have a guest today. So Elin.
Mm-hmm.
Elin?
Elin.
Elin.
You said it right the first time.
I got scared.
Yeah, you got it right. You're fine.
Yeah, anytime I get scared, I'm always just like, Moose Lady.
Yes.
I can pronounce Moose Lady.
It's easier, so you are allowed to use it.
Well, good. So we wanted to get her on the podcast because she is currently working on a degree or finished working on something, right?
I am finished. I have done the whole thesis part of it. Now I'm just running around in a museum fixing with objects the last couple of months.
Well,
so the hard bit is over.
Okay. Well, do you want us, best just like give it to you, kind of give everyone an introduction to who you are?
Okay. Hello. I am Elin Pirso, more known as the Moose Lady on Instagram. And right now I'm taking it is called kandidat in Swedish. So I would guess that's equivalent of a bachelor's in cultural heritage studies and archaeology in Sweden. And I like stones a lot.
Now, your loving of stones, is that also what makes you like Estonia?
Yeah, I mean, is it a coincidence? I think not.
Uh-oh, I broke Ian.
You broke me with puns.
Yeah.
You broke me with a pun and then broke my internet.
Yeah, like all of Minnesota shut down for a second. Yes, so that's definitely, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here is because I went down a rabbit hole of Estonian paganism and like history and stuff, because it's widely unknown and also I feel like widely unresearched as well. Is that kind of true?
Yes, so actually this is kind of fun because my final thesis was about Estonian cupmark stones, right? And that kind of ties into Estonian culture, archaeology, history, religion, and so on, and folklore and so. And I found that it is very, very, very unresearched. So my thesis is actually one of the few ones in Swedish to be written about this very subject, if not the first one in this language.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by like cut stones exactly? Like what are those exactly?
Okay, so cupmark stones, it's like if you imagine a big boulder or a small boulder or a huge boulder, and they have like these tiny cups, about this size, and they have like small cups. It could be like 15, 10, 5, and they are usually on the surface, this surface on the rock. And
Oh wow. Okay.
This is,
yeah, you have a picture.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and these ones are in Scotland, and then of course she's researching them in Estonia. So the fact that you have Estonian and then Scotland cut marks as well, and I saw quite a few here while traveling around.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and where I have grown up in Sweden, there is so many cupmark stones everywhere. They are on megalithic grave structures. They are by themselves boulders. They are by the petroglyphs. They're everywhere around here as well. So it's very interesting how this phenomenon, this cultural phenomenon, is just everywhere.
Whoa. So what exactly, like, do we know roughly why they did that? I guess that's probably what a lot of your
she's looking at the notes already. We're in trouble, boys.
we asked the hard questions.
Let's go ahead and just cut off our mics and let her go for about 20 minutes.
No, so like it is believed. So there are two main theories around this. And one theory has to do with Scandinavian death cult. And cult in an archaeology kind of sense is not like a cult, like the modern usage. It is just like cult activity, religious, spiritual activity. So one theory is that it is connected to a death cult that has come from Scandinavia to Estonia, where people have used these cups to feed the dead ones when they have feasted or so, that they put like food for them so they can join the living in feasts and so on. That is one theory. And the other theory is that it has something to do with fertility cult. Because many of these stones in Estonia, they are not placed near graves or grave fields or anything of the sort. They are placed like close to meadows, they are close to fields and so on, where people have planted crops and so on. So yeah, that's the main theories of what they've been used for. But some kind of cult activity and like, religion and so on.
Do you subscribe to the main theory, or do you have alternative theories?
Well, I actually, I believe more, I don't buy the death cult thing, even though it's super cool to say death cult, right?
Death cult.
And I am Scandinavian, so one would think that I would really like that one, but I actually buy the fertility cult thing much, much more. Because, I mean, I've studied maps, I have read so many texts and so on, and it just makes more sense to me with the location they have in the landscape. And also, there are some, I mean, obviously they have gone out and interviewed people in the past. And then they have almost exclusively been sacrificing like crops or meat or milk and like, fresh stuff in order to get good harvest and so on. So I think it makes more sense.
The fertility practice, it makes a lot more sense in the way that like the majority of people that practiced the religion, especially up in Scandinavia, and I mean pagan religion in general, they were ones that, they were farmers. They had to, grow their own food, raise cattle, raise what they could to be able to survive. So, I mean, that was, I don't even know what percentage of people that you could really put a number on were, but the vast majority, I would say, were just regular old farmers.
There wasn't really grocery stores to go to back then. So.
Yeah, right.
Someone had to be a farmer.
But y'all know what I'm saying. It makes more sense for it to be the fertility aspect, especially if they're near the fields and the meadows and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like, I came to the conclusion as well that death and fertility, they're not that far apart as one might think. Like they are kind of different of the same coin, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So they're not each other's opposites either. Like death and life are always a constant in these people's lives.
Well, have. And since I'm steeping in myself in Celtic belief systems now, being in Scotland, the identity of life and death are literally the same point, because Celtic's belief system is very reincarnation based, and I believe it's the cauldron that was found in Denmark shows like a procession of living people going into, I think, a cauldron and then literally coming out another life. So showing that cycle of life. So that those 2 points are right next to each other.
Yes, and it's very much with these as well. Very much life and death, not too far apart. And there are also, what's interesting with the Estonian cupmark stones is that they are still being used. So this is not just an ancient tradition. It is very much alive today as well. And I've been going around Estonia looking at these stones because I went in on this thesis. Because I got so fascinated. Why I even wrote it in the first place was that I went to the National Museum of Estonia in Tartu, and there was this big cupmark stone in the beginning of the exhibition there. And I got so intrigued by this stone because it was a part of the contemporary exhibition. So not the ancient part. So it wasn't put in like the distant ancient times of the exhibition at all, and it was filled with coins. There was coins all over this stone, and I looked into it, and it is not the museum that has put these coins there. It is actually the visitors and the Estonians visiting and so on, and they are sacrificing coins on it still today. And when I kind of broadened my view and I looked out in the landscape on these stones, there's coins everywhere. There is food, there is crops, I've even seen toys on these things. It is very much alive today, and that really got me hooked, so to say, on the on the whole subject.
This is a total tangent, but this is something I was thinking about the other day, because you see it everywhere, like every country I've ever been to. But the idea of throwing coins into wells or bodies
I
of
was
water
just
for
gonna
witches,
say that.
yeah. I mean, it's almost universal around the world, it seems. And I wonder if this is because of this commonality of leaving offerings. I mean, literally, a wish is essentially a prayer, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, people I guess are basically making offerings by that without even realizing it when they toss a coin in a well or
To their witcher.
It's in my head. As soon as I said it, I thought about like just finishing it, but I was just like, da.
I mean, I already have video of you singing Witcher song, so if you want to go ahead and
hey.
just sing it for us.
No, we're good. We're
Toss
good.
a coin to your witcher. Oh,
We can do a cappella.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh my goodness. No, we're good. No.
Yeah,
We're not here to sing about The Witcher.
Yeah,
Not today.
I
They gotta pay
literally
extra
already
for
have you. Yeah, it's on Ian's OnlyFans.
Oh my god, yeah, that's totally I mean, I have the hat for it, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we already have like the first picture of you wearing that wolf skin, like walking through the meadows
from
of
Minnesota.
Yeah, scaring away with a bear with your big man gun.
Oh my god, yeah.
All right, so I feel like I need to share this story on the podcast because this happened after we stopped doing the podcast, and this will be great for you as well.
Oh yeah.
So we had a leadership retreat where we all went to Heilung up in Minnesota, so Ian's territory. And we had a good time, had a few rituals and all this stuff. And so we all had our ritual clothes on, which for Ian was blue jeans and a wolf pelt around his shoulder. And sure enough, we actually attracted the attention of a bear, which, you know, from a spiritual perspective was pretty cool. But from a logistical perspective, we were like, this might be a little dangerous. So because this thing was like rummaging around very closely. And sure enough, and we're idiots. And we straight up left the bottom floor window like open wide to all of our stuff in the house. And I'm just like, why are we dumb? So I went around, I closed all the windows, and then we were like, maybe we should scare this away because it's getting kind of late. So we were like, Ian, you got your gun, right? And he was like, yeah. So he went and grabbed it, and he just walks out in the field and just like fires it off. And then as he's walking back, you know, he's got no shirt on, he's got a wolf pelt over one shoulder, he's got a gun as he's just walking out of this field.
The modern Heathen, right?
This fucking blue jeans and I don't know what shoes he was wearing, but
well, the funny thing about that too, because I know you were like you saw it and you wanted to take a photo of it because you were like, go back and walk back and like and so I was like, okay, let me be a little bit more animated with it and a little bit more eccentric with it. So I had this stupid like strut that I did, and the photo that you took ultimately at one point became the screensaver for my girlfriend's phone for a while.
Well, she's welcome. Damn, it's so blurry. Is it loading? Oh well, it's good.
You have the photo. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, it crisped up a little bit. Look at that man.
I was going to say before it crisped up, it looked like his mouth was like over here, like weirdly like a cartoon. His mouth glitched.
And then we won't go into too much detail, but then Blade made you a Grindr account and you got a lot of hits. Anyways,
leave it to Blade.
Dude, that account was active for literally 5 minutes, and I think he had like 10 messages or something like that.
Oh shit!
Ooh, wow!
At like midnight too. There was a bunch of lonely Minnesota boys that saw that pop up.
They was hunting for it.
Oh my god!
Wow.
With that,
did you ever get asked from a real person outside of internet about that picture? If so many people saw it.
No, luckily not really many, because I don't even think we put it on Instagram or anything like that. Until now, it is on
boys and
YouTube.
girls, if you want to know more about Ian, please message him at Pagan of the Lakes _ between the words and let him know how sexy and hairy you thought he looked in that picture.
Listen, a good thing this isn't out yet, because I was like, look at my phone, like expecting it to blow. I was like, yeah, we're not doing this live.
It's not live.
Oh my goodness. Now it is funny, like, we're kind of quick, like another tangent on that. Just regarding the bear, I wondered if that was the same. I wish we had actually seen it a little bit better, because I'm wondering if it was the same bear, because the land that I owned was not very far from that property where we were at. So I wonder if it's the same bear that I caught on footage, strutting around my property out that way. Because they have a pretty big territory that they will wander around.
You got to go out and ask it.
I'm not going to do that, but I'll just assume that it is.
Anyways, let's pull it back. What other questions do you have while we're still on the topic of Estonia?
Oh, I had one. Do we have any sort of rough estimate of how many of these stones have been like found or are still being used?
So there are 1,800 specific like cup mark stones, right, with the cup marks. But I mean, there are also these other sacrificial stones, and they don't have to have any marks. They don't have to have any cups. They don't have to have anything, or they can have like snake patterns on them. They can just have a big hole in the middle. The more important part of these stones is that there's a folk tradition that is known about using them, right? So people know which stone is the offering stone, because it doesn't like stand out that much. Like a cup mark stone, you can really tell that it's a cup mark stone. But I mean, I read a thesis made by a guy named Andres Kimber, and he wrote a thesis about this in 2016, I think it was from, and he found, I think, five or four or somewhere along a handful of cup mark stones that had not been registered anywhere during his research. So he
and these are all in Estonia as well?
Yeah, this is in Estonia. And so there are probably so many that they haven't found yet, as well as there are so many that has probably been destroyed, which there are also accounts of.
I mean, that's still a decent number though of known ones, because I know like a lot of the times with things like that, I mean, like take like just standard standing stones. I mean, there's probably like countless amounts of those that would just be a daunting task to try to count all of them compared to, you know, like at least it's
well,
a
I
little
think
bit
it's
more
like
specific.
somewhere in it's like the 10,000 different like megalithic sites in the UK alone.
Yeah, that's
with multiple thousands more across the western coast of Europe. It's insane.
Yeah, there's at least that's a nice smaller number to manage. But yeah, I'm sure there's like you said, there's probably a lot more that have been undocumented and obviously destroyed, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as a Swedish person, I mean, here they haven't even counted. They haven't bothered because there's so many cup marks. So they are just like, we know that this is the most used petroglyph, and that we will leave it at that. No one will count those. There's no one's business to count all of those.
Right. I am curious, are all the cup marks the same size, or do they vary in size?
They can vary in size, but more or less they are the same size.
So, because I'm wondering if, like, you know, if they're just using rudimentary tools, like, you know, a rock just like beating into it, that's not going to create the same size each time. So they had to have almost like a specific tool they used to do this, I would assume.
Yeah, and this is so interesting because in Estonia they haven't found tools, right? But they have tried different methods and so on with different type of rocks that they hit with, different minerals and so on.
Yeah.
And in Sweden they have found tools, but I mean they're more or less the same. So they have kind of, you know, cross-referenced and tried different things and based upon cup marks in Sweden, how they have been made, because they're so similar in size. But it's really fascinating because there is clearly a norm, like, because they are not this big. Like they are around, like most of them are, and they are not like that different in depth either. So it's very clearly that there's a norm to these things. So it's a very structured type of thing we're dealing with here.
Well,
almost like there was like a standard blueprint for it.
Yeah, exactly, which makes it fascinating because I mean in Estonia, even though Estonia is not that big of a country, it's around 1 million people, I think, but I mean there is a big spread of these stones and out on the islands and so on. So people who have never met each other have clearly made these things according to the same tradition.
How widespread are they past Estonia? Like, do they go all the way across the Baltic countries?
No, they have like, I think in Latvia or Lithuania, they have like, there was one of those countries, there was like 5, and in the other, there was like 50 maybe. And I know that in like Karelia and around there, they have them. And there are a couple in Russia somewhere there. Russia is so big, so I'm trying to find with my hands on the map here. But in southern Estonia, which is also fascinating, the more south you come in Estonia, the more in between it becomes in the cup mark stones, and instead there are axes found. So this could mean that there is a different tradition coming in the southern of Estonia, where the axes are replacing whatever meaning the cup mark stones have. Yeah,
this is really fascinating to me because in my journeys, now obviously I can't account for every stone circle and monument for all of the UK, but I didn't see them until Scotland. And so it seems like they are concentrated in like the northern part of Europe, which is interesting because that's the northern part of Scotland and then obviously into Sweden and into Norway. So I wonder why it's associated with these northern cultures, which I mean, obviously means they had to have some kind of cultural connection if you had people in Scotland doing them and people in Sweden and in Estonia doing them.
Yes, and there is a connection there. Where I'm from in Sweden, we have these big passage graves, like these big megalithic graves from the Stone Age, and the same ones can be found in Scotland.
Are those dolmens?
So yeah, they're kind of like dolmens.
Okay,
kind of like there's a little bit different like structure to them, but they're pretty much the same. Like both of them are big megalithic grave structures. Yeah. But there are like equivalents of the Swedish one in Scotland or vice versa. So that's really, so people believe that it is the same culture that has moved or that has inspired each other, which is very interesting. I mean, we're talking Stone Age here. So
yeah. Is there any theory as far as like where they originated from, or as far as like which area basically birthed this idea?
I think the oldest passage graves are found in Portugal, if I'm not completely off about that. It might be Portugal, because I know they have them there as well, and they have really, really old ones.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I should fact check myself a little bit, because now I'm out on the south of the Scandinavian border here. So,
well, I know one of the people we had to come to our Dutch gathering is studying I always get them confused. I think, is it megalithic or Neolithic monuments? What I think it's Neolithic.
Neolithic focuses more around ancient, where megalithic is like massive structures in a nutshell.
Anyways, old monuments of stone. So I don't misquote myself here. But specifically, she's studying ones. Am I frozen? Did I freeze? Because you guys froze. I'm back. Anyways.
Yeah.
Well, anyways.
You're fine.
Uh-oh. Everything's still frozen.
You're nothing.
No. That's the Scottish internet.
No, Scotland, don't fail me. Please, no. I don't want to edit.
You're good now, I think.
Oh, it's so hard to edit, especially when I add all the fancy graphics. Okay. Anyways, she's studying the stone monuments in like southern Italy, which I guess are still similar to the ones up in Scotland. So it seems like they kind of migrated around the Mediterranean and then like up and over, which is a very strange migration pattern, I feel like.
Yeah, it is. And they have found now, thanks to testing, that the bronze in Sweden, they have been able to test different levels of what is in the bronze, basically. And they have found that this bronze that is found in Sweden and that is being crafted in Sweden has come from mines in Spain. Whoa. A specific mine they have been able to locate it to, which is also very curious.
I wonder if a lot of that has to do with like basically when like the Roman Empire was as big as it was and moving that far up north, because I feel like they would probably have possession over those mines at that time. and then moving upwards.
This was probably
maybe.
before the Roman Empire, I imagine.
Oh, well, you're right. It would be.
Yeah,
There's
before.
a lot of evidence that shows that the ancient world was much more connected and they had a much bigger trade network
Than we
than
thought.
the academic community wants to or has like accepted, because like Utsi the Iceman, I think where he died was like very northern Italy, or maybe it was Switzerland. I know it was the Alps. I'm not exactly 100% sure. His if I'm not mistaken, like the copper from his axe was like from very southern Italy, so like at the very bottom of that country. And then there's other things to show, like I mean, one of the things, if I'm not mistaken, was like that the ancient Romans, they were found like coins of some kind of like Chinese coins or something from like Far East, if I'm not mistaken, which that I can't, I'm trying to remember. So it may not exactly been ancient Rome. It may have been more, a little bit closer to
The height of Roman.
Like, like right before the fall, something like that. But there's a lot to show that the ancient world was much more connected than we give it credit for, or have recently.
Absolutely. And the new tests, like the new science that has come into archaeology lately, it is absolutely insane. So that will help us a lot, I believe.
Well, even like what you're saying with like, the cataloging of cup-marked stones, there just hasn't been work done in certain areas and research and things like that. And I guess that's something I didn't realize as an American, coming from a place with very few, ancient sites. There are some, but they're, always, Native American. And then they haven't been categorized either. I've been to places that clearly have burial mounds, but there's no signs, there's no research, there's nothing there. And I find it's better in Europe, but it's still not complete. There's places that you find that have had little to no research done on them, and yet they are very clearly ancient sites.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in Sweden, we have the oldest ancient preservation laws in all of Europe. So here we were very early on the ball to like keep stuff and like preserve them and so on. But I have heard from friends of mine within this field that in Southern Europe it is not as structured, maybe.
Oh yeah, when I was in Greece, they were telling me how often they throw away artifacts. Like they literally just pound them up to dust because they're like, we have too many, so we're just gonna throw them away.
Are you eating Jaffa cakes?
It's just a biscuit.
Okay.
What is that?
It looks like a cookie.
It looked like a Jaffa cake.
It's a biscuit, mate.
Oh,
I'm gonna.
God, I can't wait for the comments to that.
What? I'm just mimicking Terry here. I got some produce for Freya.
Well, you're very lucky because something that we have noticed, I'm learning Estonian right now, right? And Renat is learning Swedish. And once we have noticed that very common words are very offensive in the other language. So our word for cookie means poo in their language, which is wonderful because those two things you really want to mix.
Oh, that's so funny.
I feel like
Maybe
that's like
somebody a long time ago did not like the cookies. And it's
Yeah,
like, these
right.
are shit.
yeah, like an Estonian went to Sweden, they're like, poo.
Oh, yeah,
That's so
that's
good.
funny.
I'm curious about something just before I guess we move on. Well, I guess it would be moving on. I don't know. The have you found anything else? It's like not aside from like the cuphead stones that like correlate between like I guess petroglyphs or something like that between like Scandinavia and Estonia. If there's anything that connects them further.
Well, I mean, Estonia actually, this is much more recent time, but Estonia actually used to be, so to say, a county of Sweden during the 1600s. So we have a lot of shared history. And even before that, there was, during the Vendel era, which is pre-Viking age, they have been finds of big boat graves that are clearly Scandinavian. They have done DNA testing and so on it. So they could narrow down specifically where these individuals in the boat graves in Estonia came from, and they came from Sweden. And so there are connections between Estonia and Sweden or Scandinavia in general, like all the time. And there are references here and there where you see similarities in the culture. The first time I went to Estonia, it felt so funny because it is actually like, that feeling you have in a dream where you dream something really realistic, but something is like quite quirky, something is off. So you can kind of tell like, I don't know. And that was how I felt going to Estonia for the first time. It's like, it's like home, but there's like something, I can't put my finger on it, something that is like a bit different. So that is the feeling I get reading about their history and culture and so on. It's there are correlations everywhere.
Well, from what I understand of modern Estonian culture, or at least political relationships, they associate more with the Scandinavian countries than they do the Baltic countries typically.
Yes, they do. They don't have a Baltic language. They have a Finno-Ugric language, like the Finns in Finland.
Which makes it one of the hardest languages to learn in the world, or something like that.
Yes, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's like literally like Chinese and Estonian are listed as like the hardest languages to learn.
I am just thankful they have the same alphabet, kinda.
Or it's similar enough that you can kind of associate it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have to learn I don't have to learn like Greek or anything where I have to relearn everything in my head to be able to write.
So again, we're going back to the imaginary map we've been drawing here, especially to our listeners who aren't watching this. But how far north do the cup marks go to? Like, do they go up into Finland and even up into like what is known like the Sami territory?
So this is very peculiar. The cup mark stones, they do not go that far up in the north. They are. There is a limit on the map. Exactly where on the map I can't point out right now because I don't have it in front of me. But there are cup mark stones in the south of Finland, so to say, not the upper part, and it's the same in Sweden. There's not cup mark stones up north. There is one cup mark stone on a Norwegian island that is above all of our country's borders, up in the sea somewhere. But that is one. So there is a pattern of them not going up where people have been hunting, because it's so cold in the north, and especially back then, you would survive on hunting and so on, hunting, herding and so on, while in the southern parts you could grow crops and so on and have fields.
I wonder if that's the dividing line between the hunter-gatherers and the people who are farming, is where the line ends. As soon as you get up into the hunter-gatherer territory, then they don't exist anymore, I guess.
Yeah, that is the pattern that the experts have been seeing, the archaeologists and so on have been seeing.
I guess I would.
And it's curious.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
that kind of does make sense. So, kind of like with the theory of that these stones were primarily, or that theory that they were used around like the fertility aspect of it, because you're not necessarily going to be concentrating on the fertility, like you're having a fruitful harvest and crop if you're more up north trying to hunt where you can't really grow anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very hard to grow anything up there. Like, even today, it's very hard. They have forest up there.
Literally, like in Canada and the United States, which is further south technically than Scandinavia. There's a certain line that nothing grows because it's permafrosted. I imagine it's very similar up there, and I imagine the amount of people is very low past that point.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny to think about that though, because you mentioned that, because like even here in Minnesota, we're technically more southern than the Scandinavian countries. Yet it's
literally all of the United States is more southern than Europe.
Well, okay, but I'm just listen, I know that, but
at least you're not Blade, and I'm like,
it is
like, hey Blade,
where's Sweden?
Yeah. So we got to call out Blade here, our good friend, because he's a Norse Pagan. He worships the Norse gods. And then one day I forget what brought it up. We were playing games,
Yeah, I remember what we were talking about.
And like I said
though.
something about Sweden, and he's like, I don't even know where that is. I'm like, you're a Norse pagan. How do you not know where Sweden is? And he's like, I don't know. I've just never looked it up. And I was like, Blade, you need to know where Sweden is. And so I harass him all the time. I'll just text him and be like, hey, Blade, where's Sweden? And then I'll send him like a link to like the Swedish Wikipedia page. He is very aware of where Sweden is now, so I got your back.
It's through bullying.
Oh, through excessive bullying for proper reasons. I think I literally had like a brain aneurysm as I was like, Blade, you are a Norse pagan. What part of the world does that come from? Oh my god.
No, the point that I was the kind of like just interesting like little tidbit, I guess, of fun facts of like it's interesting that it's so difficult to grow things once you get up more into like northern Scandinavia in general, because like here just in general in Minnesota during our winters like right now it is far colder and harsher than most places on the planet right now, like especially like Scandinavia, which is something that's really interesting because then we do have, we can grow crops very much so during like the warmer months. So it's kind of weird that we don't have like, it's just an interesting like.
I think the biggest difference is how warm and how long it stays warm.
That's
because
true.
It doesn't matter how cold it gets. It matters does it warm up enough to dethaw the ground, because the permafrost is basically just a permanent layer of ice that exists under the soil. And so if that never melts, that's, ultimately what causes the lack of crops to grow.
No, that's fair. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Now, the big question
explains very much why we have so many. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, this is a very large question. So what does this all have to do with IKEA? Do the Swedish meatballs come from the cut marks? They are the same size. Don't lie to me. The Swedish meatballs are the same size as the cut marks. I know what's going on here.
So I am not allowed by the Swedish king to talk publicly about this, and we will have to delete this episode now.
I knew I was onto something here. But you cannot deny they are the same size.
Yeah.
So
I will not confirm or deny anything regarding this.
Breaking the code.
Oh my god.
I only thought that because I forgot, I was like picking up this picture and I was like, holy shit, like almost everything in every Airbnb I ever stay in when I travel is always from IKEA. Like I live in an IKEA catalog like all the time.
Yeah. Have you guys seen that meme? The show me the real Swedish Empire meme. So there's this meme where it's like, I want to see the Swedish Empire, and then it's like, how it looks today. No, I mean the real Swedish Empire. And then it's like during our biggest, like how big our map has ever been during the 1600s. It's like, no, I want to see the real Swedish Empire, and then it's just a map of where IKEA is in the world.
Oh my god!
I mean, it's not wrong. People go nuts for IKEA in the States, especially.
Like, oh yeah, there's a massive one in Minneapolis, only a few hours from me. Like, and it's huge. You drive by it, it's just this big IKEA on this massive building. It's like, oh my god.
You know what? I've never been to an IKEA abroad. I would love to. I would love to.
That's different.
I've never been to an IKEA in general.
What?
Oh, Caleb. They don't have them down here.
Caleb, you
as far as I know.
me. It is worth it.
I think I've seen it off the interstate or something like that, like when I'm driving up north, but I don't think I've ever seen one down here.
It is the most attractive, mediocre furniture you'll ever own.
Yes.
Like,
with very funny names.
Oh yeah, it's a Huskeberken. Oh, that's like
oh my goodness, that's so good.
Yeah.
I feel like I actually said it.
Any other questions about Swedish society? I'm an expert.
This will be a good moment to plug. So, you, Elin. Yes.
Come on, Jake. I believe
struggling.
I
I start sweating and I get nervous.
It's fun.
She was my contact for my second book, A Midsummer Tale. I wanted to interview an actual Swede, and since she speaks for all Swedes out there, she gave me a lot of information and help in writing the second book here, at least the information for it. So I have written chapter 1. It's coming together. I got some fun Swedish stuff hidden within. So yeah, it should be a lot more in-depth than a Yule story, and obviously it's my second book. So look for that here around midsummer. So really looking forward to it. And so with that, I think this would be a good transition into Swedish stuff in general. So what has been your experience with, the pagan elements, the mythology elements growing up in Sweden? Because, it's a little bit more ingrained in society, I imagine.
Yes. Oh, wow. So this is something that I have been thinking about as a Swedish person, and seeing this growing movement of, like, for example, Norse paganism and so on, and interest in Viking cult, like Iron Age Scandinavia and so on. Especially during the Vikings TV show when that came around.
I've never heard of that show.
No, me neither.
No,
Love
yeah.
it. But no,
Ragnar?
I've never heard of it. No, I don't know. Anyway, it was so interesting as a Swedish person to see this huge interest all of a sudden, right? And growing up here, like, there is not a city without the Odin Gatan, like Odin Street. There is not a city without anything, like there are restaurants named Breidablick, there's Torslunda, like there's names, it is so everywhere that you become blind to it. There are kindergartens named after Urd. It is so everywhere that you become kind of blind to it, and you learn about it from such a young age. I mean, it's the part of the culture. And I mean, even we have small kids running around being named Odin and Thor, and there's nothing weird with it, right? And so it's Frey. It's super common, super normal here. So to understand that is somewhat special, from an outside perspective, it was really cool to see. So I mean, I've been ever since I was born, I guess, have been like, fed with these tales, and it's there's kids shows, there's books, there's like everywhere in school. There are runestones in the backyards of some people. Some lucky people out there actually have runestones in their backyards. It is absolutely so unfair.
Well, I think oh, go ahead, Ian.
I was gonna say, no, it kind of reminds me of, like, I've kind of brought this up a long time ago on one of our earlier episodes of, it's not nowhere near on par with like what you were saying, but a lot of people that live in Minnesota have come from are of Norwegian, Swedish descent, and so yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff just hidden throughout as well, that I've kind of not, like I said, on the same level as what you're experiencing, but I mean, there's plenty of places that have little hidden things that now being more in depth within the practice and everything.
After living in the desert.
Yeah, and after living in Florida and then a desert, for 10 years, coming back home, it was crazy to start to really pick that stuff out. I mean, there's a guy, I don't know, a family basically who has here in the town that I live in that have a massive wooden carved, basically a Scandinavian individual, or Viking for lack of better terms, like statue that is in their front yard, and it's basically like an individual sitting on like a stump, but then like the background of it is a long ship, and there's ravens on it and all sorts of just like very intricate stuff. And so it was on like I said, a very smaller scale level of that. I can understand that. Like, it's very interesting to see kind of like how some of that stuff.
Of course, you have like the Young Center as well.
Well, yeah, we have that, where we have a replica stave church and a longship that sailed from here to Norway.
Super cool.
Most of the Swedes, though, are down in Wisconsin. We're mostly Norwegian up in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm curious to actually get to Sweden and see how much it actually looks like Wisconsin. From what I've seen, Wisconsin actually is very similar to the landscape of Sweden, based on like pictures.
It's funny how that's kind of how it's it's been like, my girlfriend has been to Norway, and she said like a lot of the stuff around here, so far from what she's seen, obviously it's very much winter right now, so there's not too much to see. It just reminds her of parts of Norway that she has visited, minus like the fjords and stuff like that, because we're so landlocked. But some of the more mainland central part of Norway, it's relatively similar.
How much do the Norwegians hold fjords over the Swedes?
Ooh.
Oh, we don't need the fjords.
They're beautiful.
We have so old oaks over here. We don't care about the fjords. We're super jealous, obviously, but I mean, it is what it is.
We don't need your fjords, but we want your fjords.
And now they have the audacity to have the oldest runestone in the world as well. How dare they?
Did they steal that from Sweden?
I mean, I bet they didn't. They probably did. I wish they did, and I have evidence of it.
Well, you guys have Uppsala, so you'll be all right.
Yeah, we have Uppsala.
I just did like another like off tangent. So I've done like the ancestry.com like DNA thing, and I just did the 23andMe version of it, which goes I think a little bit more in depth. And primarily, I very much come from Scandinavian like ancestry, and it broke it down even more into like the regions. And this bit of Swedish ancestry that I have, it says like the Uppsala like region in there, which I thought was pretty interesting when I saw that. I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's cool. I wish that I could, because I've seen people do this DNA test, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is so excited about it, and it's so cool. I love it. But I realize as well, if I do it, I already know, like there's no magical, discovery.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm 80% Swedish.
Basically. So it's it is so cool, and I wish I could have that experience as well. But well, maybe I can do it anyway.
That's actually one of the most common questions I get from people I talk to here. That obviously I'm American, and it's like the first question they ask me. They're like, "Oh, so did you do like a DNA test, and is that why you're here?" Because like they just assume I'm here because I wanted to connect to my Scottish roots, and I'm just like, "No, I never did one." But I'm like, "But clearly there is some part of me that is from here."
Well, do you know? This is kind of in the topic. There is a Swedish like reality TV show where people from America, I think maybe it's both Canada and the United States, but like they come to Sweden because they have found out they have Swedish heritage and Swedish relatives that moved over there. So they are actually in this contest in Sweden where they do Swedish stuff, right? Swedish traditional stuff. And they actually, the more contests they win, the more they get to know about their heritage and their personal story, like their family stories. And the winner actually gets to meet all of the relatives that they have tracked down of this person. So all of the living relatives, they get to go on a big party and meet everyone. So
That's
it
cool.
is.
I need to know the name of the show so that I can totally not throw my name into it.
Oh yeah. I will give it to you.
Yes.
I know I'm going back just a little bit, but I wasn't surprised at all to hear that like you said there's a high number of like Swedes in Wisconsin and like specifically Green Bay, because I know that like Niels grew up in Sweden and that man loves cheese. So I'm not surprised to hear that, cheese land in America is full of Swedes.
I mean, they rhyme, cheese and Swedes.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've been in Europe for a while now. Everyone here loves cheese. They all think that they're like unique for it, but every country here, they're just like, oh, we have the best cheese.
Yeah.
It's always about the sausage and the cheese.
Yeah, like every country, sausage and cheese, and they all think they're the bee's knees for it. Okay, I'm going to call out Holland here real quick because I was talking about this. So Kuhn, Claire's boyfriend, was very excited. He was like, "Oh, hey, little Jacob, I'm going to make you Winteltafius tomorrow for breakfast." And I was like, "Oh, Winteltafius, that sounds really funny." And that's, if you've watched the Dutch Gathering video, Winteltafius means spinning bitches in English. And so it's a funny word. but you know, he was all hyped, like, you know, it was like his family recipe for these Winteltafius that was gonna blow my mind. I wake up and all this dude is doing is taking slices of bread and putting it in egg and cinnamon batter and putting it on a griddle.
French toast.
He's making French
Yeah.
toast, and he acts
Yeah.
like it is the most unique thing in the universe. I'm like, dude, that's French toast. Why do you think I've never
Yeah.
had French toast before? He's like, no, it's Winteltafius. I'm like, it's French toast.
Completely different.
That's so funny. Oh my
I'm
god.
having flashbacks to when I made gravy and you called it a bowl full of snot.
So Jacob's a food snob, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob's a food snob.
I just get more pretentious the more countries I visit. That's why I can't go to France. I'll be too powerful.
Oh my god.
So I did want to give you time because we're actually closing in the final 10 minutes here because you have to do your PSA on the stone carvings and the rock carvings of Sweden. the
Okay.
petroglyphs.
So I am the creator of a movement, right? So this movement is called "Don't Walk on the Petroglyphs," specifically because I saw with the rise of social media that there were more and more influencers that put up pictures where they were walking on these 900 million year old stones that are already withering away with these very delicate carvings. So I made it my business to contact the government, and I actually nagged them enough. So now when you go to Tanum World Heritage, where there is this huge petroglyphs everywhere, they have put up signs by every rock that you're not supposed to walk on it. So that's a win. And I wholeheartedly believe that you should not walk on the petroglyphs. Don't do it. Never do it. So yeah, that's my PSA.
Don't step on stone.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because I mean, how many artifacts and things like that have we probably lost or become so worn down because of, oh, I need to get my photo.
Well, I think because again, like I said, like as far as like the categorization of stuff, there's so many things that haven't been categorized because no one's taken the time to do it. The same thing with preservation. I've seen rune stones literally existing in a glass case. I've also seen them on the side of a road. And so it's like it's so varying on the level of care for these ancient things. The same with like pictures things like here in Scotland. Is like the picture stuff doesn't get as much attention as it should because, and I'm having a video come out this week about it for all the audience out there. So like if you look up the ancient history of Scotland, like, one of the first things you'll see is Wikipedia. And the first thing that pops up, the start of religious heritage, it says Scotland converted to Christianity in 650. And it's like, that's where it starts the religious history. And so it completely skips over anything that came before. And that's pretty common, I find, in this area, is it seems like that gets forgotten about a lot. And so like a lot of the Pictish symbols, like one of them was a Pictish boar on Fort Denad in Kilmartin Glen, is literally just exposed in the elements, in the rain, and like just you can just walk all over it, like nothing there, and it's almost completely gone. But if someone would have taken the notion to be like, hey, maybe we should do something to help preserve it, it could have happened 15 years ago. Just no one's done that.
Yeah.
Maybe part of the thing in like Great Britain is like they think that they've got so many of them that they can't or they don't have to take care of them. Maybe because you said there's something like 10,000.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah,
there's literally one 2 miles away from me. Like the oldest, one of the oldest rock cairns in Scotland is 2 miles down the road from me on the side of a road.
Damn.
And it has like a plaque.
and like I'm not agreeing with it that they shouldn't take care of them. Myself, I think that they should, because I mean, hell, you've got all this ancient history. I mean, we don't. It's hard to say like how much stuff here in the States like we lost because either people got rid of it or it already withered away before anybody thought to do anything with it.
I think a lot of it comes down to cost as well. It costs money to preserve things, and depending on how many things you have, it's like you're not going to put all of your rune stones in glass boxes because you have 4,000 runestones or whatever. So that's a lot of money and time and resources to maintain that. And I think that's the problem with Greece, is since the economy is not good, they're going to not put money towards, preserving ancient history, because that's not something that improves their economy necessarily. It's not something that improves the military. So that's going to be at the bottom of the list. And when literally every inch of your cities are covered in ancient history and you need to build something, you're not going to spend the extra money to preserve things.
Yeah, it is always a constant within cultural heritage. It is always the weighing of what does society need now, and what do we want to preserve. Well, like what is unique enough to preserve. And as a cultural heritage person myself, I would want to preserve everything, but of course, like it is not realistic either when you're drowning in all of this ancient stuff, right? So it is horrible, but sometimes it is also necessary. But the things you do have, you should like take care of. Like if you have made a commitment, for example, a museum or a government has taken the commitment to take care of something, as in the case with the petroglyphs at Tanum, I mean, they have taken a commitment to expose these petroglyphs because they were covered in moss from the beginning. They've exposed them. They have lined up, so you can walk around them and so on. They put up signs and so, and therefore it's also like, well, now you have to commit to actually that people don't walk on them, because not everyone knows that, obviously, because there are people coming from all around the world where there are no petroglyphs, maybe. So
do you think it has helped putting up the signs?
Yeah, I think so. And they are not like in a language. They are literally like an image. Foot, surface, no. It's very universal.
I like it. Yeah, that's good.
You have no reason not to understand this unless you're blind.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when you have taken that commitment, you should go all the way with it. Absolutely. So
you've done so well on the not swearing thing for making it seem like such a big issue before we're recording.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing like 5 minutes ago.
I was honestly wondering if she had been cussing the whole time, and I just had
like it was just going by.
My brain is fried by now. I am like,
oh yeah, you're just trying not to. It's the end now. Like if you could just let it out.
Yeah. How many times can she say fuck before we end the episode?
Yeah,
don't walk on the fucking petroglyphs.
Yeah, put your fucking foot on there.
Yeah, how do you feel about like I'm trying to figure out if this should bug me. I feel like it should, but like when I was in because again the level of care of rune stones and stone circles and everything like that is always different. Obviously Stonehenge gets a lot of attention in England, so it gets a lot more care. The Clava Cairns gets a lot of attention because it's the most popular one in Scotland, and it's easy to visit, and there's tour buses literally jumping up loads of tourists in front of it. But there's another one, it's like the middle of England, it's Keswick. It's the Castle Rig runestones, also pretty popular, big sign, big attraction, tour buses go to it. But when I was there was just children climbing all over these stone circles, like, running around and just like clambering with their shoes, like scraping on the side. And like part of me thinks, okay, like I don't like this because coming in as a pagan, I'm like, this is a sacred place to me. But at the same time, if that's just children, they play on things. And did that probably happen in the past with stone circles? Probably. I almost guarantee you, if there was a market in a stone circle, which is what they think these stone circles were used for, children would climb on them. So I feel very strange about it sometimes.
Yeah, but this is actually so interesting with Estonia. If we go back to Estonia, is that they have specific laws regarding these natural sacred places called heaths in Estonian. I think they are called sacred groves in English. And they have specific laws about these sacred places that are not, so to say, man-made, like a church, for example, or any building of any sort. That is very clearly man-made for rituals of different sorts. But these heath places, they are also very protected by law. You're not allowed to act however around there, and which is also very showing in their folklore. Like if you are cutting down trees at these places, something very bad will happen to you and your family and everyone you've ever spoken to, basically. So it's very interesting how how different like countries deal with these things, because I understand like it feels weird seeing people just letting their children climb all over an ancient monument. It feels
Yeah.
at the same time, what can we do?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very
Well, because
hard.
like I'm thinking like again, one of the biggest things I want to do when we purchase land in the States for the nonprofit is to build stone circles. And how are we going to fill it in? Technically, yes, the stones are old because they're stones, but we just put them up. So how do we feel about children climbing on them? It's going to be an interesting ethical dilemma. I feel like we have, because if Bella wants to climb on a stone circle, are we going to stop her?
I mean, she's probably going to, no matter how many times we stop her. I'm just going to be honest.
I think
it's like when she gets something like that she wants to do, she's going to do everything she can to do it.
I guess it depends. Like, because like one of the things I'm going to do when my grandfather passes, since he's kind of into all this as well, and I even told him this, is I'm going to get a runestone made for him, and like
Nice.
So like if it was my grandfather's runestone, I'd be like, get the fuck off. But if it's just like a stone circle we would use for rituals purpose, I feel like I would care a little less. Like I feel like I would still sit the kids down and be like, hey, this is a very sacred space, and hope that teaches them something.
Yeah.
Or be like
Within reason, yeah.
Or I'm gonna pull out the Swedish the naked and play some fiddle on the river or something like that, and track the children and drown them.
No. This took a turn.
I just think I can just see this happening already, though. Not exactly that part.
Drowning the children.
Like whenever we try to explain like the new pagan and stuff like that, you have to kind of go with what feels right. Like we try to tell that to a child, it feels right to play on the rocks. I want to climb on them. I'm doing what I feel like I'm told to do.
Well, I guess that's where probably where a lot of like the folk tales and stuff come from, of like creatures that mythical creatures or like fey creatures that will come after you, or like when Jacob's talking about drowning, the first thing that I thought of was like kelpies. Like that's probably where a lot of that stuff came from to some degree as well, of like these spiritual beings that protect these sacred landmarks and stones and things like that I'm sure people were like, what's the best way to make a child not do something? It's probably tell them a scary story about a creature that was gonna like eat them or something like that, or take them away, like some like Baba Yaga or something like that,
Yeah, trauma is very efficient.
Well, you say it like that.
Well, like I'm trying to think of like one of the stories I was told as a children was just like teaching me not to go into graveyards. It was even like I think it was an Appalachian story of just like I think it was just bloody bones. Like, oh, if you go in the graveyard, bloody bones is gonna get you. Like why does this story exist? Especially in Americana. Well, it's probably to teach children not to go in the fucking graveyard.
Yeah, and potentially trample on headstones and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then you turn 16, you're like, oh, well, I'm gonna go in the graveyard because I'm a big boy.
I'm not scared of bloody bones.
Yeah, bloody bones. I don't know who he is. Well, with that, we have reached, I think, the hour mark. So, do we have any final questions before we close out?
Good.
Do you have anything new that you're working on, or you're planning on working on next?
Well, I am working on reviving my old dusty YouTube in the future to actually talk more. What I do now is that I put up a bunch of stuff on Instagram and like some fast reels on there. I tried TikTok, didn't work. So
stay off of that.
I felt very old being on there. So,
I think anyone who is not 14 feels old on TikTok.
Yeah, so I went back I post like these small reels, a couple of 1 minute or something, where I talk about like different historical sites and so on. And I would want to dust off my old YouTube channel and like start visiting places and showing places and so on, because people really liked even though the quality sucked of my old videos, people enjoyed the whole thing of traveling to a place, right, and being there, because not everyone can travel, like not everyone can travel around the world and see these things for real. So that is my next project. right now. And then I have a bunch of other. I am always doing 100 things at the same time. I'm weaving belts. I'm researching stuff. I'm at the museum, like collecting stuff in the old magazine out there. And
Well, yeah,
yeah.
you've been you essentially, I mean, really having some educational blogs on the Valhyr website now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm researching and posting blog posts. Yeah, I'm doing that too.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned that like one time this whole time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like do you I feel like all you would do is weave belts these days. I feel like those take some time.
Oh yes, they take a lot of time. And now I am crazy enough to start with more advanced patterns, so like much wider belts as well.
Ooh.
So now I will just weave and weave and weave and weave. There will be no end to it. I won't sleep ever.
Just like learn to weave in your sleep. You'll be good to go. Just
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, like so I'm selling my handmade folk belts at the Valhyr store, and I saw that most of them had sold out by now. And I got really excited and happy, like that's so cool. I've created all of this with my own hands and my time and everything and my designs and so on. And then it hit me like, shit, I have to make new ones.
And that right there is why I stopped being a painter. Because I like selling a painting and be like, yeah, I sold a painting. Oh, I gotta do another one now.
You get super excited and happy, like people like what I do, what I created. Yes. And it's like,
yeah, that is why I like digital content, because a video I made 3 years ago, someone can still watch now. So
yeah, so that's very smart. Very smart.
But I'm happy for your return to YouTube. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, that's be awesome.
If you ever need a guest, I got you.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
I'm already planning to go to Sweden. Let's do some. Let's collab.
Yeah, that's what the YouTubers do. I am not like a YouTuber, so I don't know really, right? So I have to get into it. But can I leave a recommendation before we end? Because I feel like your audience would appreciate a little movie tip, maybe.
Oh.
Please do.
It's in English as well.
Oh.
So you don't have to read anything, you have to listen only. So there is this very cool movie that not many people know about that is named The Baltic Tribes, The Last Pagans of Europe. So write it down, The Baltic Tribes. It was made in 2018. The director is named. And that is a really, really cool and also educational, because they have taken inspiration of real events that has happened and like historical stuff. And it is about the Crusaders coming to the Baltics and Livonia around Lithuania and Estonia and so on there, spreading Christianity. And since they were the last pagans of Europe, it is about their like how they combat this and so on. It's very, very, it's such a cool movie. It's absolutely beautifully made. And I think that like pagan stuff seemed to be your thing, right?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
I don't know. Maybe it's not the listener's cup of tea over here. I don't know.
Pretty sure the majority of our listeners might be into this.
Yeah. So if you want to see like something, a little European movie over there, it is in English still. So
What's it on? Is it on like any like the streaming sites or anything like that?
Actually, I believe it might be on YouTube, actually, the whole movie, if I'm not mistaken. Can anyone fact check me so I'm not lying?
I'm looking right now.
It is on Tubi that you can watch now for free, it says on my phone.
Mine said, well, I'm on the UK now, but it says I can watch now for free on Amazon Prime, but that's the UK.
Which means we can probably get it here.
Yeah, it's included on Freevee.
Okay, so maybe they have taken it down from YouTube, but I saw it on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I was going to say about like the Swedish culture thing, just because this is a call out to our American audience, is it funny to you that a lot of people really obsess over the name Bjorn?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Out of all of the names, Björn, it's like, imagine you go out in the world and someone is super like thinking it's a very cool thing to be named John.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow, that's so, it's kind of on that level. It's like, over here it's very, and it also like, obviously it is a word over here as well. It means bear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's one of those really old names. It's a nice name, like, don't get me wrong. It's just, yeah, it's a bit strange to hear.
I think I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast. I doubt I have. I'm not
Please
sure.
do.
But when I was working at a restaurant bar over this last fall to make some extra money, there was a cook there, and we got to talking because he was originally born in Germany, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." Obviously I've been to Germany. He spoke a little German, and he goes by BJ, and I was like, "That's a very strange name." And so I asked him one day, I was like, "Why do you go by BJ?" And he's like, "Well, I was like, it seems like people make fun of that," and he's like, "They do. Like, what's your actual name?" He's like, "Oh, my name's Björn." Like, legally, this guy's name is Björn. Like, a thing that is honestly like very rare in the States and sounds cool. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Why did you change from Björn to BJ?" And he's like, "Oh, people made fun of my real name because they couldn't pronounce it." I'm like, "So you changed it to BJ?"
Yeah,
You thought
that's-
that was not going to get you more
Wow.
made fun of?
Oh my goodness.
Wow. But it sounds like a bit international, a bit cool,
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
like
yeah, and he had like a cool ponytail thing going on, like a gray beard.
Oh.
He had a look. And then he's like, "I'm BJ."
Oh, so he actually looked like a Björn as well.
Yeah, he looked like he fit the Björn. He wasn't like, like completely the opposite of what you'd expect in a Björn,
oh
like an
my
office
God.
worker or something.
Yeah.
All right. So, final Swedish hot take. How do you feel about the overusage now of the term "school"?
It's very funny, and I will tell you why.
Okay, bring it.
Tell you why it's funny. So, like, besides the whole, like, in Swedish, obviously it's shears, like that's the equivalent of it.
Yeah.
But it is so funny because in Swedish it also means, because we have a lot of these words that are spelled and pronounced the exact same way, and they mean completely different things. So in Swedish it also means bowl, like one of those that you eat cereal from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because in circumstances where you're shearing, obviously you don't think of bowls, but when people use skål in other ways, like randomly here and there, which is cool, I don't mind at all. I don't think it's like annoying or whatever, but it's just so funny because in my mind I have this imagery of whenever someone says it, they lift up like a cereal bowl. So it's like skål. And so
Maybe it
I
has
think
the
it's
sacred
just-
meat in the bowl, skull.
Right.
Yeah.
To add
Every
to
time
that,
we ended our podcast, scold.
That would be so funny on a T-shirt. Can you imagine? That would
Wait,
be so
can we all
funny.
get bowls real quick? We'll do it. Like, let's go grab some bowls and like end the
Yeah,
podcast with that.
yeah.
It'd be really
I'm
funny.
I'm done.
All right, let's go
Please.
grab some bowls, guys.
I don't have a bowl near me. I grabbed like one of my casting crucibles because that's the closest thing to a bowl I have right near.
That's good enough.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that though, because to kind of add to it, because like for Minnesota specifically, obviously like we have American football here, and most states have their own team. For Minnesota, it is the Vikings because of the Scandinavian heritage.
Oh.
There is, and their big thing is skull. Like that is a big thing with all of like their merchandise. There is a individual in the city that I live in that has on their front windshield of their Jeep, it says "Skull for Life," and on their Jeep, because they're obviously a very big Minnesota Vikings fan, and I see it all the time. And whenever I do, I just giggle to myself because they just have it like right there on their vehicle, without realizing. So yeah, bowl for life.
Yeah, bowl for life, man.
Well, it also seems like it means something different in like Old Norse, because in my when I was doing comparisons to like Old Norse Poetic Edda and English Poetic Edda, and the lines that say like talking about the runes in the Havamal, it's like, do you know how to write them? Do you know how to read them? Do you know how to spell them? All that stuff. It translates like it's like Fetsahiva Rista Skal with Skal, but it's Old
Yes.
Norse. So
Yes. So this is also a skull is old Norse for ska in modern Swedish, and ska, not the music style. Ska in like it means shell. So skull is it's very similar. It's very, very similar, but it is I think I would think it is more of a shell, like who carved them shell in that kind of a way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it's like Fetsahiva Rista Skal, Fetsahiva Blota Skal, Fetsahiva Fas Skal, Fetsahiva Sinda Skal.
Yeah, and in a poetic, like Scandinavian language type of way, that is really, really beautiful. So like they've kind of made it fancy and made it a bit,
Oh yeah. Well, that's actually like if I do anything with like an Odin ritual, that's actually my chant for the ritual itself. Is saying that phrase in Old Norse, because it's something that like it's repetitive and I can just keep it going, so it helps me get into like a mindset.
Yeah, it's a good one. I love that one. It's absolutely beautiful.
All right, so before we close out, final plugs. Like, where can people find you? Where are you doing stuff?
Well, not on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
But that will come. But I am. Do I say at? Do I have to say at?
Nah, yeah. I guess so. That's what the kids do.
At Moose Lady with an underscore on Instagram is where you can find me. Where I am posting a lot about Norse and Scandinavian, and also sometimes Estonian culture, heritage, history, stuff like that.
Do you ever think you'll put your thesis in English for people to read?
I absolutely will. I have had some brave, honorable people that has actually taken my Swedish thesis and Google translated it to read it. It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, I will publish in English 100%, because I have written both about the boat graves found in Estonia that were from Sweden, which is fascinating, and the copper mark stones. And I think that everyone would benefit of the knowledge that are in those. So, and since English is the universal language to talk right now, it makes sense.
Until Estonian takes over the world and we all speak Estonian.
No, that's I am not learning this hard ass language without payoff, okay?
Yeah, your husband already speaks English. You don't need to learn that Estonian.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Oh, and they can find you. You find your belts at valhere.com.
Oh yeah, valhere.com. Oh my god! Imagine if I'm not plugging him now. Wow.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Okay, yeah, Valhere. I am also a very active part of valhere.com. I write blog posts. I weave belts. I am also very much in the background working on ideas and back and forth designing stuff and so on.
And you're probably his go-to model as well.
I am the go-to model.
That's me with Casey back in the States. I'm like, Casey, I have a shirt, wear it. Let's go out.
Yes. It's very good to have a backup model. It's very, very good.
Yeah. All right. With that, thank you everyone for joining in and listening in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much, Elin.
Yeah. Thank you.
There we go. Finally, after years of talking to each other, I'm saying your name correctly. Yes. I'll whisper it as I just like do life.
Yeah, people will think that you're like chanting some deity or something.
But thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad we were finally able to do this. I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to meet you this year, so that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
that would be cool. Yeah, I'm down. I'm down.
It's like I'm going to Sweden. What's to say?
Yeah, and thank you so much, everyone, for letting me talk, because I know I can get carried away. So thank you.
We got to record another episode after this, so we got to save our voice. Well, so thank you so very much. And to our listeners out there, again, we have changed our name to the Northern Traditions Podcast away from the Folk Podcast as we're entering this next chapter of our journey. Again, we're going to be having guests on, but we're also going to just be having conversations like the next episode that will be coming out. We're also releasing these episodes every single time on YouTube as well. So if you want to check them out, you want to see our beautiful faces, you want to see the picture of Ian with a wolf pellet over his shoulder as he walks with a gun, walking out of the forest after he shot a gun in the air to scare away a bear, that's where you check it out. You check it out on YouTube. And then also we're Caleb, Ian, and myself are part of the Northern Fellowship of Northern Traditions, a group of people bringing back the old ways of Northern Europe to America as well as around the world now. So if you're interested in attending one of our events, please check out our website, www.northerntraditions.org. And with that, we will do an Until the Hall so we can do this joke. So everyone, thank you so very much. And until the Hall.
Skull.
Yes.
Skull.
Oh, I said it early.
Aw.